Hi there, economics legends. Another quick video on economics. Today's video is on price elasticity of demand. I'll cover off price elasticity of supply in a separate video. Okay, so let's talk about, first of all, what price elasticity of demand is. And we need to have a really good understanding of what this is before we get into the nitty-gritty details of it. So as far as the definitions of the two are concerned, a low price elasticity of demand is called inelastic. And I want you to use the analogy of rubber bands when we're talking elasticity. Yeah? So what this means is when there's a change in price that's applied to a market, the rubber band doesn't move very much. And that represents the change in quantity demanded to any given change in price. As you guys know, the law of demand states that whenever there's an increase in price, then there's going to be a corresponding fall in quantity demanded. And conversely, when there's a decrease in price, there's going to be an increase in quantity demanded. And you guys know this every day as consumers of the things that you buy. When McDonald's has their 24 nuggets for $10, that's a fall in price. And so as a result, that's going to see an increase in quantity demanded. Now, how much of a change to quantity demanded that takes is what elasticity is all about. We know that with a drop in price, there will be an increase in quantity demanded. What price elasticity of demand tells us is to what degree, by how much. Does it change a little bit or does it change a lot? So when we have an inelastic, that just means that when there's a change in price, there's not a real big change in quantity demanded from the original demand. Then we have a high price elasticity of demand, or an elastic demand. And here again, using our rubber band analogy, when there is a change in price for a particular market, there is a big change in quantity demanded. So let's get into that in a little more detail. Okay, I've got some charts for you. Low price elasticity of demand is what we're going to start with for the first one. As you'll see here, this is represented by a steep line, a steep demand curve. And the easy way to remember this, don't forget, is the word inelastic starts with an I, and a capital I is like a straight up and down. Okay, and that's the easy way to remember whether it is the up and down chart or the flat chart, which is elastic or inelastic. So an inelastic demand is represented by a very steep line. Okay, but this is all about a change in price. So let's instigate a change in price here from P1 to P2. And you'll see here there is a halving of the price from P1 to P2. And then as we do, we trail along that dotted line till we hit that new quantity demanded point on the demand curve. And you'll see here the corresponding change to quantity. Now this is quite interesting because we've seen a really big decrease in price, a halving of price, yet the quantity demanded, we know it should increase, and it should, but there has only been just a tiny little bit of an increase. So when we go back to our rubber band analogy, the change in price has been applied, but the rubber band didn't move very much. Yeah, so when there's a big fall in price for an inelastic market, you're not going to see a big change in quantity demanded. When there's a decrease, you'll see an increase, but just not very much. So that's the inelastic demand curve. Now let's go on to the elastic demand curve. And you'll see here that the demand curve is really flat. So an elastic demand curve is characterized by a really flat demand curve. So just like we saw before, let's apply a change in price. And here I've only just done a really small decrease in price. Now, as you guys know, when there's a fall in price, there should be a corresponding increase in quantity demanded. That's what the law of demand tells us. But there's only been a tiny change in price, yet when we have an elastic demand curve, it has a significant increase in the quantity demanded. So a small change in price will represent a large change in quantity demanded. Quite often it's easier to think of these two markets with examples. Yeah, so I've got these two charts back up here, all in the finished versions. And a good example of an inelastic market is the market for fuel. And we're going to explain a little bit why this is the case a little bit later. But as you can imagine, if the price goes up or down for fuel, me as a consumer, or when you start driving, if you haven't started driving already, you need the fuel. Like if they double the price, it's not like you can go and put something else in the car. You don't have availability of substitutes there. Likewise, something that's something that's elastic would be the market for international holidays. So here, because the holidays are so expensive, any small change in price will actually represent a large proportion of income that you're going to save. And so as a result, you're much more likely to increase your quantity demanded for an international holiday. All right, so let's go over and have a look at the theory behind the factors that determine whether a market is elastic or inelastic. And this is really the key part that you're going to have to learn in an assessment is we will give you a market condition and you're going to have to use these factors to justify whether the market is elastic or inelastic. So let's go back to fuel. A reason why the fuel is an inelastic market, meaning changes to price don't have a big change to quantity demanded, is, well, the degree of necessity. So you need fuel. And so as a result, you're kind of willing to pay whatever the price is because you have to have it to drive your car. Another factor that could help justify your decision for fuel being an inelastic market would be availability of substitutes. So for the most part, most cars are petrol cars. And when your tank is on empty, you don't have any other substitutes that you can put in that tank. You have to put the petrol in. When we look at our international holidays, we've got degree of necessity as an example of how you could justify how this is an elastic market. And what I want you to think of in this example is, let's say the price of overseas holidays were to go up. Well, that's going to, be a big chunk of your income. So as a result, do you actually need a holiday, or can you then go and use your money to go and purchase other goods and services that give you a higher sense of utility or value? Well, yes, you can. You don't need a holiday. And so you know what? When the price goes up, you can switch your consumption. And similarly, if you decide to switch your consumption, there's lots of other things that you can do with your money that will still get you that value or utility of, relaxation or a new experience. You could have a holiday within Australia, you could go to the movies, you could do lots of things with that money that would still give you that sense of relaxation and enjoyment. So that's just two factors that I've used for both of those that you can use to justify. There are two more. So we've got proportion of income and time. And the key is you don't have to use all four to justify. You really only need one of these factors, or if two works, then two in your answers. Okay, so that's price elasticity of demand. And to summarize, what this is about is putting just another layer on top of what we know of the law of demand. So we know when the price falls, quantity demanded will increase. And what price elasticity tells us is by how much. Okay, so it's just putting another layer on what you already know about the law of demand. So guys, I hope this was useful. Feel free to watch over this video again if you need another go at it, or ask me with any questions. Thanks, guys.